Hi, welcome everyone. This is the Mizrahi Voices for Israel interview we have with Matan Bros. My name is Kobe Greenfield. I work for Mizrahi Olami. We're so happy to partner with the Bernie's News Network and bring this interview to you guys. Now, we have an amazing story today, and you don't want to hear it from me. So I'll introduce, our main speaker, Matan Bros. So Matan, just to introduce yourself a little bit, where are you from? What's your background? So we can get to know you a little bit before we hear your incredible story.
Great. So thank you so much for inviting me. My name is Matan Bros. I live in Ra'anana. I'm married to Eliana and I have five amazing kids. Currently, I'm working for a cyber startup, but I'm sure that we will speak about the reserve duty that I had. I had about 5 years in active duty in Shirion, and for the past 10 years, I'm doing Miluim in Shirion also. And during October 7th, I was the deputy commander of a company called Pluga Aleph. It's like Company A, as part of 46 Battalion unit, as part of 401 Khatik.
Amazing. And we'll get into all of that and hear the story, but just even take a step back. You said 5 years, which, by the way, I want our listeners to know that's not the normal time a soldier needs to serve. That means you signed an extra because you were committed not just to serve the country, but to go into commander's course and then officer's course. Is that correct?
Yeah, so actually, after when I graduated high school, I went to yeshiva. So I've been 3 years in Shaveh Hebron in yeshiva. After 3 years, I decided that I don't want to do Hesder or something. I want to do like regular active duty as like every 18-year-old the drafting. So I went to Shirion for 3 years. And after about a year, I decided that I want to give more. And I went to officer school, went back to Shirion. And then I've been also like platoon commander and deputy commander of a company in Tzuk Eitan, in Protective Edge, back then in 2014.
Oh, wow. So this
Yeah,
isn't your first rodeo. This is
yeah,
you've already stepped into the role of leadership from way, way back.
exactly.
Wow, amazing. I would even also ask, what inspired you to join the army as someone who grew up in Israel? And obviously, even to take that question a step further, you were clearly inspired to join, but what made you want to become an officer? Why do extra time? You could have left the army after 3 years. Why do more? What
I
gave you
know.
that
So
push?
yeah. So I think that it's came up with like the education that you get from your parents and from your family, and also like from the people around. I was in. I were in yeshiva in Hebron. It's very common that people go to combat and give extra effort, and I was also part of it. Like this was part of the culture, part of the DNA of like giving extra. And after like the first year in Shirion, I felt that this is something that I like. Uh, I'm not. It's not easy for sure, but it's also something that like, you feel it in your heart. And I decided that I want to give more.
Amazing. That's incredible. So I guess let's jump to the beginning. I guess Matan, all of us when October 7th happened, it hit us all differently. A lot of the listeners didn't know about it. We didn't really know the information. I remember actually very vividly, I was sitting, holding a Sefer Torah because I had done Hagbah, Mincha, and Shabbat. The rabbi someone whispers in his ear, we heard the news that something bad happened, and it hit everyone differently. But I want to focus from you a little bit. So you were in Israel when it happened. And obviously we'll hear your story about how you reacted. So where were you when you heard about it? And what were your feelings? What was that like a little bit, if you could share with us?
So that morning, I will start with saying that like the company that I was part of, Pluga Aleph, is a reserve duty, is a Miluim company, but it's part of Sadir, for like active duty unit. Meaning that we knew that like in any scenario, if something happened, we will be the first one to jump. We had like 8 tanks waiting for us in Nachshonim. It's close by with the airport. And we knew that like every time, Shomer Chomot, in every round, like we were the first one to jump. So this is something that in the back of my mind. I had like 4 kids back then, and on October 7th, 6/29, we heard the sirens, we heard the Zaka. So we ran down to the shelter. And after that, I went to my parents' house because like I wanted to speak with my dad and ask him if he heard anything else. He said that like things happening, but we didn't have any visibility on something that happened down south. It was like a regular like sirens that happen. It happens from time to time in Israel. I went to shul with my older kids, and I start hearing people speaking about what's happened down south, and it's like it's not a regular round. It's like we start to heard about tenders going down south and around Gaza, like at the Otef, and also in Sderot. And then I realized that this is something serious. So I decided it was like 9:30 or something like that morning, a.m. I went back home. I went back home with one of my kids. I left one, like the other one, the older one, I left at shul. And I went back home to open my phone to see if like they call us. And when I got home, it was like already that everyone's speaking in the WhatsApp group, and they're saying that like it's really serious, and we need to come to the base. So I said, okay, I put up the uniforms. It was like 8 a.m., like maybe 10 a.m. or something like that. And I took my car. My wife, she was not there. So I went back to shul because I assumed that she would be there. I went to shul, and over there I had to say, like, I say goodbye to her because I don't know what's happening. I don't know for how long. And my older kid, she was understanding. She was like holding my hand, and she was like very stressed. And also the people around, they start to hear anything, and they see me with like the ranks. I had the dargot, and people start to ask me questions, and I was like, I don't know, like I just need to run. And so that's how I left the house. I left them over there, and I drove. I drove all the way to Nachshonim. We got there about 80 or 90% of the company arrived there by 11 a.m., 11:30 a.m. And then we were like, we tried to be ready as soon as possible. We spoke with people. After a few hours, about like 4 p.m., we got a phone. Like we tried to reach out to, like, you have trucks that take the tanks, because like you cannot take tanks like that. And I was the deputy commander, so I was in charge of it. I tried to get, but they told us that it will take 2 days to get trucks, because most of the trucks drivers are down south, and they are not able to come. They're in shelters down south, and they don't able to come and take the tanks.
And just if you don't mind, if I could explain also a little bit, when I was in the army myself, and I actually drove a Nagmash, not nearly as cool of a vehicle. It's an APC, not nearly as cool as what Matan did in tanks. But the way you transfer them is you get a big truck and you put it on the truck, and then the truck brings it over. You're not supposed to drive these vehicles on the road. It's not safe. It's not good for the road. It's not good for the vehicles. It's definitely not fuel efficient. So what's amazing with Matan is you got the phone call basically telling you when your unit is ready to go. You got them ready to go, which is exactly what you're supposed to do. And then you get the news, wait 2 days. Sit
Yeah.
and actually even wait 2 days. And I want to know, how did that make you feel when you heard that?
Yeah, it was really like bombing, because like we do have the force power and everything, and we're ready, and we already see or saw like all the things on Telegram and all the things that happen, with like like everyone is exposed these days. And then we got the call from like the Magad, the Mahat. They tell us, you don't understand what's happening down south. They were there, and they said like, we just send you a bus and come with the bus. And you need to understand, like, we are a Shirion unit. We know how to fight with tanks. We don't do like a regular combat between houses. But they said, like, we don't care. Just bring what you have and just hop on the bus. The feeling back then was very hard, because this is something that we don't know how to do. But we said, like, if people needs us, like, we will do it. So we went up on the bus. Actually, I was staying behind because I was the deputy commander. So I'm in charge of like taking all the tanks down south when we will get the trucks in like 2 days. But everyone on the company is like hopping on the bus, and you could see their faces. Like you could see the faces. The faces were not like happy. It was like you see what's happening down south, and it's not easy. So everyone's hopping on the bus with that like that, and then the commander of the company get a phone call from the Mahat. He's saying, you know what? Just come with the tanks, because like he told him like we could just drive there, and he said, but how will you go there? And we told him like, just trust us, we will find a way. We post on Facebook. If someone knows someone that have a jeep and know the roads in the Merkaz and central of Israel, And then someone like one guy with a jeep came with his son within like 1 hour, and he said like, I will show you the way, I will pave the way.
Wow. A
And
complete
then
stranger, not someone connected to the unit. You just reached
not
out and found
connected to
someone who
anything.
could guide
Yeah.
you. That's
Yeah.
incredible.
So like the commander of the company is like just taking these 8 tanks out of the base and starting to drive like that. And you need to understand, like driving in tank, it's like it's maximum going on like 30 or 40 kilometers, but it's not like you cannot drive like that all the time. So the pace or it's about 130 kilometers from Nachshonim to Kfar Aza, or like to the Otef Aza. And they started at around like 11 p.m. They started the way. I came with my car, and I was like lechapek. I was like going in front of them with my own like Mazda car, and every road that they need to pass, like you cannot just drive like that. So we tried to drive as much on the side of the roads, but if they had to cross any road or like something like that, so I had to stop the traffic and let them go. And also, like for example, we had to fuel them in the middle of this road. At around Kiryat Gat, I had to find like a fuel truck that came and we fueled them. And at the end, like they got to the Otef Aza on October 8th morning at around 11 a.m.
That's
So
amazing.
so that's amazing. We got there, and then we were calling like the Magad, the Machat, we called everyone, and they said like, people, we need you in Be'eri, we need you in Kfar Aza. So we sent a platoon, like a Machlaka to Kfar Aza, a Machlaka to Be'eri, and the company commander went with them to Kfar Aza. And when they got to Kfar Aza, we met Duvdevan and Givati, few units that were operating there from like October 7th morning. And they were like, when they looked at us, it was like the Mashiach was coming. It was like they were seeing tanks. They said like, this is like the first tank that we got here in Kfar Aza. And they said that they have hostages in houses, and the Mechablim, the terrorists, are all around, and they were not able to go there. Even like the Duvdevan and Swat and Yamam, they were not able to go to these houses because of the terrorists that were in like a different house. So they asked one of our tanks, one of our commanders, to hit one of the houses. So this is like a very surreal moment when he needs to like shot a tank missile on like Rosenfeld family house. You know, you see the sign and everything. So it was a very like surreal moments, but at the end, like we rescued 5 people from this house after they hit the terrorists, and we did the Mesibat Odaya. Like after we finished like the first round,
Amazing.
and they came to this party. They came to this like
You invited that family who you would
we
save.
invited that family and we got them. And also, like if you want afterwards, I could send you. I think Can 11 made a very nice movie on this like day and this meeting with this family. So it was a very inspirational day.
For sure, send us that video. We'll send it out to all of our viewers. Thank you. I mean, this sounds incredible. You know, you guys were just about to get in a bus and literally go all the way down to Gaza and be without your tanks, which is what you're trained to be in, what you're most confident in, what we really needed at that moment. And then kind of at the last minute, the decision was made, you're going to drive all the way down, which is incredible to think of. And you had to figure out things like navigating the roads and figuring out how to get there and stopping traffic and fueling on the way, which is crazy to think. And somehow you managed all that, which first of all, kol hakavod, it's so amazing. But I have to ask, what was going through your mind? You're sitting in your Mazda and you're driving and you're into kilometer 2 out of 100 something. What's going through your mind in that moment?
So it's a good question. I think that you are not thinking, like all that day, we were not thinking a lot, just like operating, you know, we just need to move on. So when I left them, I was the only one that didn't take a weapon, because I was so into like sending everyone out and like send all the missiles and everything. And then like when they start driving, I was like going to pick up like a weapon and 2 like mahsaniot, and we were starting like moving. Actually, I got to the Otef on October 8th that morning at around 7 a.m. because like when I left them in a place where they know how to go, like in Kiryat Gat, and from there, like they were on the side road, so I cannot drive with them. So I drove straight to the Otef, and I were there by myself. Like when I got there, I was like looking around, and you already see like it like will not get into graphic visuals, but I was seeing everything, and I was there by myself, and I waited another like 3 hours until they came. So it was like you're just moving forward. You're not thinking about what's happening, and I think that this is something. It's also really depend on people, but I think this is something that I also felt during throughout all the war. Like even when we got in after 3 weeks, we were the first force to get in when IDF started operating in Gaza, and also over there, like you had tons of events and incidents, but I was not just I was just operating. I was not thinking.
And I think that makes so much sense because someone as a soldier too, like, so much of training is to train your mind to know exactly what you need to do in the moment so that you're not thinking. It just instinctively you make the right decision. I also want to remind our audience, if you have any questions at the end, we'll have a Q&A with Matan. So just write your questions in the chat and our producer will go over them. And at the end, we'll have a Q&A we're very excited about. So let's actually shift. The journey, which by the way already is incredible, miraculous how it happened. Now you get to Gaza. The scene, as you said, is crazy. We don't need to get into the graphics. That's totally okay. What was it like when you got there? What was the challenges? I assume one of the biggest challenges was communication. People didn't know. But can you tell us about what was the challenge? You are the deputy commander. You are the company commander at the moment, and you're there, and your job is to figure out what these tanks who are about to come down to Gaza do. What challenges did you face? How do you make those decisions?
So, like you have many kinds of challenges from being, for example, we were in tanks. So we were like in each tank, you have 4 people and you are in the tank with them all the time. And it's like a challenge, like when you need to sleep, when you need to eat, everything is like in this like small place. So this is like one challenge. I personally in my tank had 6 people because we also have a paramedic woman and a medic. So for us, it was even like more hard, and she was amazing because she needs to be with like 5 guys in one tank, and but she were there, and it proved itself when like we had incidents. She were the first one to give like a first aid. But this is like one of the challenges. We have also the fear, when you get into like very like serious incidents, things happen, and like people shot you, and we got on our company few like anti-tank missiles and people that shoot on us. But you also try to, and also for example, to get, for example, to refuel or like to get food. Everything is complicated. Everything is like a mission, and you need to operate it like that. I think that the fact that you have amazing people around you that helps you, and you could like speak with and you could trust on, that's one of the things that could help you like go through this.
Amazing. And I love how you talked about the paramedic, and we'll actually get to her story a little bit later, but just what you just said, I think is amazing. You lean on your friends who are nearby. You lean on the people you could trust. What was the morale like amongst your team? Right? I assume fear was a big thing, but we're going through people's
So
minds.
I think that the fear is more before you get in. After you get in, it's like you don't feel it. It's like something that you get it as a given, as people say. But I think that the morale was really good. It was really dependent also because when we got in, we didn't know how long it would take. And we thought it will be like 1 week, 2 weeks. Also, like in Protective Edge, I had this like I already had experience of war, and over there it was much more closer. It was like 1-2 kilometers from the border. So each time that you need to refuel or to fix something in the tank, you go out, and then it's like you maximum stay for like 2 days and go out. But over here on the first day, we already got into like 5, 7, 8 kilometers inside. So we understood that we are not going out. But when we got the mission, it was like 5 days, 7 days. After like the first week, like we sat there, and I remember that the commander of the battalion, I was speaking with him, and he said like maximum next Wednesday you're home. And I was like, okay, like that's manageable. This is something. And then like a month after that we didn't go back, I was like, you remember that you told me that it will be next Wednesday? And it's like that. And it's lots of uncertainty. It's lots of like every day is like full of like, things that happen, and you need to be very flexible or very agile. It's not easy, but what we did, if you speak about moral, what's happened after like the first 2 weeks, we saw that it's very hard on everyone. So we took everyone out of the tent. It was very dangerous. It was the middle of like Shati refugee camp, and we had like tons of like shooting around. But we took everyone out of the tanks. We sit like between two tanks, and we said like, for all of us, it's like hard, but we want to hear like how each of you is like helping himself, like getting strength. And then it was very sweet because like one of them took out like a teddy bear that he holds in his like pocket and that his fiance gave him, and he said that this is like what holding him like up. And someone else said that like we are sitting here in Shati refugee camp, and it might be that we have hostages 200 meters from us in one of these houses, and I don't want to go back before I bring them out. So each one like share his own thoughts and his own like feelings, and I think that this is like something that we try to do as much as possible to bring our heads out of the water.
And I think that's amazing that even like you said, it might have not been the safest move, but it's something you guys all needed, for your own what we call it, mental safety, or just so you could like
Yeah.
finish the job. I have to ask you, Matan, is there something that you brought in with you that gave you motivation that you're able to look to, whether it be a teddy bear or just the thought that the hostages are so close, we have to keep moving forward?
So I had someone from the unit that he went with me. He was a bit older than me, but he went to the same yeshiva that I went. And every time that it was hard on me, I used to go to him because he's like a very optimistic, and he told me all the time, that this is like the Netzach Israel. This is like the times that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends us to be here, and this is like the greatest opportunity that we have. We could serve Hashem and to do like this amazing mitzvah of like helping Israel with all the forces that we have. And so I used to go to him to speak with him about it. He's like one of the soldiers. I was like the deputy commander of the company, and he was like of the simple soldiers, but he was not simple at all, and he really helped me throughout like this.
That's amazing. That's incredible. I'm just going to ask, this could be a quicker question, but were you able to talk with your family? I know, so you get to the Gaza border and everything's a little bit crazy. A few weeks later, you and your unit, your tank unit, are the first to go in, and you're there for, correct me if I'm wrong, 100 days straight. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Were you able to talk to your family at all during those 100 days? Any type of communication?
Yeah, so I think that the first 2 weeks were most stressful because it was like the
Really?
first forces in, and like no one knew what's happening, and it was like that. So then I didn't speak with anyone. I think that after 2 or 3 weeks, we tried to manage that every like 2 or 3 weeks, like you could go home. So like we had like 24 hours home or like less than that, but we had the opportunity to go out. Um, so I had in this like 100 days, I went home for like 3 or 4 times, but that was mainly like the interaction with the
That's it.
outer world and with the family.
Out of 100 days, every few, maybe it sounds like every bit of time, maybe you get a day or half a day out and someone switches
Yeah,
you. But let's
yeah.
let's talk about those 100 days now. And obviously, anything that's too graphic or too deep, we don't need to get into. But are there any moments or stories from the battlefield that stand out to you? Something that moved you, inspired you, that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah. So as I told you, the first week and the first 2 weeks were like the most stressful, and we also like had the most intense times. But all these like 100 days, it's like you feel that you're in like part like the deepest part of Gaza. For example, I don't know if you watched the place where they switch the hostages and when they give them to the Red Cross, but we were there. We were like in this place. So this is like the deepest place in the middle of the city. And it was like manageable most of the time. What's happened, I think that after the first 3 weeks, we had like a free day. So we thought the free day will be go out and be with the family, but they decided that the free day will be inside. So it was like a day that they gave us. We were staying between Jabalia and Gaza City and Shati, and we decided to to go. It was about kilometers from there, so we went to the beach and we got into the water. It was amazing, like feeling that day. But the following day, we were going back to war, and like we finished in Gaza City. We went to Jabalia, the same place that the forces were like right now until like last week, and we were the first force to get into Jabalia from that end, because like we came from like the beach from like west to east, so we actually like go from not from Israel, from the other side, and we were the first force also to go within like the brigade. So it was like 5,000, 6,000 soldiers, and we were the first company, like 40 soldiers that going in. And what's happened that night, it was the first night going in, and what's happened like around 5:30 in the morning, I'm hearing on the connection, on the network, I hear that the commander of the company is saying that he was injured. And so he thought that explosive device was hoping on him, but what's happened actually that they shot him anti-tank missile. So they shot the anti-tank missile, it hit the tank, but nothing happened. What's happened that he tried to understand what's happening outside. So when they waited, and when he took his head out, they shot another anti-tank missile, and he got it in his head. Thanks God, it hit all the optics of the tank, so it didn't hit him. It missed by like half a meter, but all the optics of the tanks, all the glasses were broken on his face. So he was saying that he was injured, but then like we lost, like he didn't speak. So I just ran there with my tank. I told you that I have the paramedic in my tank, so we took him from his tank and put in my tank, and she's starting to take care of him. We saw that he lost conscious, but she said that he's stable. Now I'm like the deputy commander of the company, so I actually need to A, rescue and evacuate him out, and B, I need to like lead the company. So I gave them.
Yeah,
Yes.
in this one moment, so many things are happening. You know, the paramedic is saving a life and trying to make sense of this, but all of a sudden, this is a crazy moment because you know you save your commander, but now you're thrown in to be the commander of the whole unit.
Right.
So
So
what did you do?
yeah. So just gave them orders, like to the commanders, to the officers. I told them like you should like continue lead the company. I'm taking it to the helicopter. And what's happening that it was like a long road on the way to Jabalia, and we were like 5 companies, and we were the first one, but the last one also had ambush. So I need to like drive with him to the helicopter, but also to pass them where they are like shooting from one way to another. So it was interesting. I'll not get a lot to it, but also they lost one of their soldiers in there, and I drove all the way to the helicopter. I put them there in the helicopter, and then like the deputy commander of the battalion is like grabbing my hand, and he's saying like the commander of the battalion wants to speak with you. So I was like, okay, I hop on the network, and he's saying like, we're waiting for you. Like, you need to lead us back
That's the call.
to continue and like the commander, like I was the deputy of like someone called Golan, is an amazing guy. And he asked me, like, if something, God forbid, will happen to me, do you want to replace me? And I said, no, I don't want to replace you. I'm good with being a deputy. That's what I'm doing for the past like 15 years. I'm great with that. But on that moment, I understood that this is like what's like the soldiers need right now. They need stability. They need someone that they're familiar with. They need someone to like a familiar face. And I said, okay, so I'm coming. So after like we put him with the helicopter, I drove all these like 5 companies back, and I went back to my guys, and we continued to lead the battalion for the next like 2 weeks in Jabalia. Then we had the first ceasefire when they took out the first hostages, and we got back to fight in Rimal, in like the middle, like the higher neighborhood of Gaza. And after about 2 or 3 weeks, he came back. like Golan came back. Yeah, he was very severe injured, and he had a few surgeries, but he's like very strong, and he decided with like one eye to come back, and he came to lead us back after that.
I think there's so much in the leadership to learn, not only from your commander, but how you used to had to step up in his place and getting the call saying,
Yeah.
"We need you," Let's go. So this was amazing. We're gonna now open up to some questions that Bernie, our producer, is gonna write in the chat. We'll spend the next 10 minutes doing some Q&A to hear what people have to say, and then maybe at the end we'll give 60 seconds for you to wrap up. So I'm gonna ask our producer to post some questions in the chat. And if no questions are sent in yet, now is your time. Okay, we have our first one in. So our first question, Matan, is how did you secure the fuel truck in Kiryat Gat? How long does it take to get a tank fully ready for combat from a cold start? How was that? You had to just find a fuel truck and secure it. How long does it take? Tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah, so it's two very good questions. The first one is easy. Like we had in the battalion, we had a truck, so I asked them and they sent it to me wherever I wanted. So I was like pushing it and just fill the tanks. About making a tank fully ready, it's really interesting. This is something that we worked on for like 3 years, because like we gathered tank and put them in this like warehouse, and behind every tank we had everything ready, like from ammunition to like the logistic stuff and the customs of the soldiers of these tanks. So like we really took it seriously, and we said like on the one day that they will call us, God forbid, but we know that we are in Israel and this is something that might happen, we will be like as ready as possible. So for us it took about like 30 minutes to be ready. So it's really amazing to think that this is like more like it's a reserve duty, it's a miluim. So it's people that they work in high tech and they are lawyers and they are like teachers, but in like 2 hours they got to the place, and in 30 minutes like we make the tank fully ready, and from there it's like
Wow, that's amazing. It really just shows how much the preparation and the practice when times aren't tense help you for when times are. Next question came in. This is a little bit of a challenging one.
Yeah.
How did you explain to your children where you were going that morning?
Yeah, so I think that the oldest one, she was 7. With her, it was the hardest. Yeah, so with her, it was the hardest. She was understanding. She was like, she was holding my hand, and she was saying that she don't want me to leave. But I think that when you educate kids and when you tell them that you have values and you have things that you believe in, so you have like what you believe in and you have the words that you speak, but you also have like the actions that you need to take. And I think that for them and also for us, it was very important to like speak with them and to demonstrate them that this is like the decision that we are making as part of Am Yisrael.
I'm sure they took so much of a lesson of leadership. Their dad's a hero. All the Abbas and mothers, really anyone in Israel to run out.
Yeah.
Not easy, but thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
Okay, next question that came in. As a leader, what is your advice for people looking to join the army and maybe try and become a commander themselves? Good question.
Yeah, so it's a really good question. I think that the first thing is like working on your Hebrew, because I assume that you want to join IDF and not the American Army. But yeah, working on your Hebrew is very important. It could be challenging, but it will help you a lot. And also, I think that it's mainly about attitude. I think that it's the attitude that you're coming with, and if you're like ready to go and you're really like up to do the extra effort, this is something that could really help you. It's not always easy, and in the tironut, in the training, it's very hard because it's really demanding. But if you're coming with the right attitude, I think that it will really help you like finish the basic trainings, and then the commander will see that you have the attitude of like leading, and they will give you the opportunity, because like leaders are necessary everywhere.
Amazing. I love that. My next question came in. Your story is so inspiring. What was it like operating in Gaza, given the concern about hostages in the area you were operating in? It's a good question.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and thank you so much for starting with this comment. Yeah, so I think that also like we had in the middle of the time we had like the story that with 3 hostages that were shot, and it was not on our district, but we heard about it. And I think that all the time it's like a question how you're operating, what you do, and this is like something that is on the top of your mind all the time. And also you have in every battalion, you have someone that's in charge of the hostages. So like you could speak with, like he's directing and get intelligence about where it might happen that you will find the hostages, or like something that will lead us to that. So this is something that like is part of what we are doing and the missions that we get every day. And so like it's over there.
Wow, amazing. How did you deal with Shabbat during those long deployments in Gaza? What was it like for your work in the army now with the ceasefire? So we got two questions. They're great. What was Shabbat like, or any holiday you had to spend down there? What do you do with your work now that there's a ceasefire? Are you going back to work? How's that gonna look?
So it's a good question. I will start with the first one. So Shabbat over there, also Shabbat, Tefillin, everything is like just complementary. It's something that if you succeed to do. We had amazing Shabbatot after like about 3 or 4 weeks. Like they tried to bring us like food for Shabbat
Wow.
and wine and everything. So over there, it could be like, I remember that in Rimal, we had one Shabbat that we were in like one of the houses on like the fourth floor, and we had Kabbalat Shabbat. So you have times like that. I have a funny story. One of my soldiers is like a Russian, like non-religious, like not connected to anything with like Judaism. And every morning I tried to daven in the tank, to put my tefillin in the tank, and I was like davening out loud. For example, like Hayom Yom, this is like the day. And one day, like I went to daven in one of the houses that we took. So I said, like, I have another meeting over there. Like we have like the preparation every day. And I said, like, I will just like daven there. So I came back to the tank after like few hours, and he was like, "You didn't daven today." I was like, "Yeah, I daven in the tank. I daven in the house." And he was like, "Yeah, but I need you to daven here because I like to see like the days coming, and this is like part of my routine." So it's like it was like that. Regarding work, so like after I came back to work on February when we finished like the first round, then they called us to Rafa on like April. So I went back there for 3 months, and since July, they didn't call me back. They had about a month ago another round, like the third round, but I didn't go because I just had a baby girl. And so yeah, so thank you. So I stayed with my wife, but this is like the situation where I'm going back and forth from like Miluim to work and vice versa.
All right, we'll have our last question, and then maybe afterwards we'll hear just one word from you, like final thoughts. For young Jews outside of Israel, or Olim, who haven't been in the army, how can they be more connected to stories like yours? Do you have a message to encourage them to be involved?
Yeah, so getting connected, I think that like this platform could really be a good way to do it, to find more people like that to tell the story and get connected. Also, like I assume that you could find online things like that. I think that like the main message that I could give from my perspective is like you don't know like when people will need you and how they will need you and what's the Kadosh Baruch Hu wants you to do. But when it calls, like you need to say, hey, this is like I'm here. As Avraham Avinu said, Hineni. And I think that this is like a great example. Like I didn't want to be a commander of a company. I was happy with being a deputy. But when I felt it, that this is like what the soldiers need, this is Am Israel needs, I step forward, and I took this role on my shoulders. It was not easy, but this is like the right thing to do. And each one of you, I think that could find the places where this is what Am Israel needs. This is what Hakadosh Baruch Hu asked me to do, and by doing that, this is like it could for sure like get you more involved and be on the right.
Yeah, and I think with that answer, those are the greatest words to wrap up with. So just on behalf of Mizrahi Voices for Israel, on behalf of the Burning News Network, on behalf of Mizrahi Olami, on behalf of everyone really listening and tuning in, we want to thank you, Matan, to you and your soldiers, your heroism, everything you've done, and that you've come on here to share your story with us. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and good luck with that. Continue with the good work that you're doing.
Amen.